Morning, everyone. So we are on to chapter 10 of the Dreamsnatcher. This is called Jumping the Broomstick. That night, a figure entered the forest and passed by Skull's camp unseen. On it crept through the deadened glade, and in between the sallow beeches, wearing the night like a cloak. It paused briefly by the river boundary, then lowered itself into the water and waded across. With silent stealth, it edged closer to Oak's camp. Perched like a china ornament, an owl hooted from a branch. The figure stopped, brushing its long grey hair back from its face. There was music further ahead, a pan flute, a fiddle, an accordion. The camp was celebrating something, but this was no time for a party. The figure continued on, creeping up to the first of the sacred oaks. It stretched out a blackened hand, the figures burned to stumps, and placed a roll of leather into a hollow in the tree. The initials on the leather gleamed in the moonlight, M.P., and then the figure slipped from the trees back into the night. The camp was buzzing with excitement. The jumping of the broomstick ceremony had arrived. The stars were out, and Oak and Mushy were sitting round the fire on stools carved from beechwood, drinking bog myrtle beer and feeding titbits to the camp's 2 greyhounds. Beside them, wearing so much purple she was almost blue, Patty was sprinkling herbs into her husband's soup. "It's lovage, Jessie," she whispered. "It'll increase your lovage for me and ensure faithfulness at all times." Sorry, I've got a hair round my nose. Jessie rolled his eyes, but drank the concoction nevertheless. To his right, Cinderella Bull held a sparkling fortune-telling ball before Hard Times Bob, and the children gathered round the fire, sipping wood sorrel fizzes, delicious bubbly drinks Mushy made from green leaf plants that grew along the forest floor. Moll watched from the edge of the clearing with Siddy. "You sure you don't want to muck in for a bit?" Siddy said. "You could stand by me when Ivy jumps the broomstick." Moll threw him a withering look so Siddy didn't push it further. It had been bad enough bumping into Oak and Mushy on their way back to Moll's wagon earlier. When they tried to talk to Moll, she had been as uncommunicative as Porridge II, and Siddy had found the whole thing so profoundly awkward his ears had burned red and began to twitch. And when it was obvious the children in the camp had been told, as they'd knocked several times on Moll's wagon to see if she wanted to climb trees with them, Moll hadn't answered. She was boarded up against them all. Sparks from the fire crackled into the air and floated upwards, lost in the overhanging branches. Domino had come down from his watch and was playing fiddle, slow and haunting like the call to worship. Then came Mushy's voice as keeper of the songs, gravelly like grain, lilting and drifting over the fire. The gypsies watched spellbound as Ivy, her hands covered in henna and her plaited hair, scooped up over her head, took her place beside Wisdom. Before the birch broomstick they had to jump over to bless their marriage. And set back from the celebrations from somewhere in the darkness of the ancient wood, branches stirred. "If you jump higher than Wisdom," Patty shouted, "you'll be the decision-maker of the family." She tucked a coin under Ivy's arm. 7 years good luck to the person who catches the coin when Ivy jumps." Beneath the branches of a sacred oak, Moll and Siddy looked on, half intrigued, half appalled. To them, Wisdom was a fist fighter. Jumping the broomstick seemed a bit of a letdown. Patty glanced around the camp. "Siddy!" she hollered. "Wherever you've got to, you better come here now. Your sister's getting married, and it's not the kind of thing you skulk off for." "I've got to go join them, Moll," Siddy said, tying Porridge II into a knot and popping him into his pocket. "I'll bring you back a wood sorrel fizz." But Moll was barely listening. "I'm going to get my pa's bone reading from Cinderella Bull's wagon." "Can't you wait a while, then I'll come with you?" Siddy hissed. "No, it can't wait, Sid. I need to..." Siddy nudged her. "I think someone wants a word with you." She followed his gaze and tucked back from the sacred oaks among the hawthorn bushes. 2 yellow-green eyes glinted, and then Griff stepped out, his footprints softer than falling snow. Moll felt a rush of warmth. Griff! She wanted to leap forward and wrap her arms around him. Somehow they were in this together, in a way that no one in the camp was, except perhaps Siddy. "If Oak or Mushy ask for me, Sid, say I'm skulking in my bed. Oak's boys aren't up on watch right now, so Mushy won't know I've slipped out." Siddy nodded, watching in awe as the wildcat slunk towards them. He'd seen Griff many times with Moll, but there was also something unpredictable and wild about him, and that just kept the rest of the camp at a wary distance. "Just stay here with Griff. Don't go to Cinderella Bull's wagon without me, okay?" Siddy ran back towards the fire. Mushy's lyrics were growing livelier and faster, and not before long, Patty was clambering on the spoons, Domino was spiralling out notes from his fiddle, and Hard Times Bob was making a series of squeezy noises from his accordion, in time with his hiccups, obviously. and nestled into the branches not so far from Moll and Griff, a pair of eyes continued to watch, blinking every now and again and narrowing. Moll smiled as Griff stood before her. "Thank you, Griff, for helping me last night, and for watching me out for me all those years ago." Griff dipped his head and purred, his way of talking, of understanding. "You left the northern wilderness, your home, for me, didn't you?" Again, Griff dipped his head. In the moonlight, his coat looked almost brown, just like the fur of his belly. Moll knelt down slowly, and for some seconds she just watched Griff, and he watched back, and then so gently she felt like she might not be moving at all. Moll stretched out her hand. Griff stayed where he was, still, watching, and then he took one step closer to Moll. The movement was fluid, like liquid, and Moll watched in silence. Her hand was now just centimetres from the wildcat's head. His whiskers twitched, and he craned his neck forward until his fur was touching the tips of Moll's fingers. She held her breath. Griff moved closer, nestling his head deeper into her hand. A great warmth surged through Moll's body as she felt her fingers sink into his fur. She edged closer, stretching out her other hand. But Griff didn't back away. He leant into Moll, curling his body into hers, burrowing his head into her neck, and nuzzling into her chest. Everything Moll had heard and seen, the dream snatch, the bone murmur, her parents, fell away. All she could feel was Griff. She didn't realize she was crying, but Griff did, and he nuzzled closer until all Moll could hear was his purr, rumbling deep within her own body. And like a stain in the darkness, the two eyes watched on, unseen. Minutes passed, then the eyes moved, closer, towards the sacred oak, towards the one the figure had placed the roll of leather inside. A hand reached out towards the tree, because to the hand it didn't matter whose initial the leather bore. The hand had come from Moll. The roll of leather was just a lucky find. Back in the clearing, the camp were dancing quick-stepping jigs round the fire as Wisdom and Ivy clasped each other's hands and leapt over the broomstick. Everyone roared and clapped before gathering round the fire for hotchy-witchy baked hedgehog, a meal Moll strongly disagreed with since she'd struck up a friendship with an injured hedgehog a few years before. Moll drew back from Griff, and together they watched the festivities unfold. Oak was laughing with Wisdom and Ivy, while Mushy fussed round them with food. Moll felt a pang of sadness as she thought of what she could have been if her own parents were still alive. She leant in closer to Griff, and for several minutes they just watched, and then Griff padded away from Moll towards the trees. "Go hunt," Moll smiled. "I'll wait for you here." Griff melted into the forest, but within minutes of his leaving, a chill slithered over Moll's skin. Behind her, the camp was full of noise, music, cheers, shouts, but it was silence that fell upon Moll's ears. A silence loaded with danger, and then, almost so faintly it might not have been there at all, the dream snatch began to pulse inside her. Moll's heart quickened, and the chanting pounded louder, feeding on her fear. Something was shifting between the branches ahead. Not Griff, Moll could tell. There was a larger, darker, and it was gathering speed, coming straight towards her. Moll drew breath to scream, but out of nowhere a hand clapped down over her mouth. The dream snatch screeched inside her, and the cloaked figure slid nearer still. That's the end of your chapter. I'll see you on Monday. Bye-bye.